Welcome everybody to another episode of Head to Head with Brian Parker. I am he, and we are back after a week hiatus due to the fact that I had a scheduling conflict for once where I was actually up in New York City filming for an upcoming short film that we hope to turn into a full-length feature film. So had to take care of that. Make that drive up to New York City with my lovely wife, but thankfully we did what we needed to do. We are back, and I am excited to be back in the chair to once again talk about what's going on in the world. Just want to say thank you to all of our viewers over YouTube and on the Roku channel. Keeps growing, viewership keeps going up, so we are thankful to everyone about that. If you would like to be on our panel, please reach out to us at theparkermedia@gmail.com to join our panel. We normally record on Thursdays and air on Friday. We are joined today by our panelists. Let's say hello to the one, the only, Miss Lori Parker. How you doing, Lori?
Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday Eve.
Hey, somebody needs a drug test. And we have Mr. Brad Kaufman. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. I don't know why you're still married to this guy. I don't know why.
I love him so. I do.
We all do, man. We all do.
We
Checks
all
in the
do.
mail, Lori. Checks in the mail. You do a great job. You know, it was funny. Lori actually was able to be on set with me on Saturday to really see what goes on, you know, when you're filming something. And I'm sure that it opened her eyes to a whole lot of things that probably she didn't know kind of goes into putting all that together. The amount of retakes, I'm sure, and camera changes and all those little moving pieces and parts and everything. But I did notice that probably a lot of people probably said the same thing that Brad just says, like, how do you do it? Is he like this? Is he like this all the time? Mm-hmm. I know they asked her that. Is he like that all the time?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it fun.
Yeah. Checks in the mail, baby. Checks in the mail. Damn, you're good. You do it such a straight face. I think there's two actors in this family. But last but certainly not least today, ladies and gentlemen, hailing from Charlotte, North Carolina, standing at 6'4.5". It is the one, the only, the franchise, the one who brings us in all of our global viewers, Mr. Jermaine Parker. How you doing, sir?
Man, I'm doing good, man. I'm blessed to be here, man. I appreciate you.
Oh, man. I appreciate you too, sir, as always, as always. Well, listen, our panel is a little smaller today, but that doesn't mean that our content will be by any means whatsoever. Why? Because we got a lot of crazy white people out there that want to sit there and kill black people. So, of course, we're going to talk about that a little bit, even though I was going to also talk a little bit about voting right laws in Georgia and some of the backlash that they're facing. And, you know, of course, they don't want to do any cancel culture. They just want to stop drinking Coke. So, but that's not cancel culture, no. But, you know, first and foremost, you know, we are now at a point where the Derek Chauvin murder trial has come to an end. The defense, if you want to call it that, finally rested. Chauvin expectedly decided to plead the fifth as to not incriminate himself, which he's legally okay with doing. It doesn't mean one thing or another. Honestly, it was the best thing he could have done because his defense attorney just did not do a very good job of poking any holes into anything, and they would have burned him alive during the cross-examination by the prosecution. So he did himself a favor by not throwing any more logs into this burning fire. But after 2 weeks of watching the prosecution going to expert after expert, witness after witness, and then watching the defense line up their experts, they finally decided that, you know what, either we can get one person to believe that what they saw isn't what they saw, or we can get at least one person on that jury to say, well, yeah, even though he had a knee on his neck and his back, there were other contributing factors that superseded why he's dead. Meaning that actions that he took on his own before he ever met Derek Chauvin is the real cause of his death. Meaning that he wasn't an angel, he had a drug problem. So those were the reasons that he really died, not the fact that Chauvin decided that particular day, I'm just gonna put my knee on this man's neck and cut off a lot of his airflow. So the closing statements will happen, and then it'll be in the hands of the jury. And be honest with y'all, all it really takes is one. And I just ain't got no faith that all 12 people are gonna see the same. But even though it's obvious what happened, I just have no faith in our system to believe, even in 2021, that 12 people will agree that they saw the same thing and that a conviction is the only way to go. I think because all they need is one person to not agree, you got a hung jury. What do y'all think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
So
have no faith either.
I'm honestly bracing myself. And you know, the crazy thing is that one of the jurors lives in Brooklyn Center.
Yes, and the judge had, I think it was the defense was trying to say that because of what was going on in Brooklyn Center due to the killing of Daunte, I apologize, I cannot remember his last name.
Right.
But that happening, and that could, with those events going on, that would taint his or her opinion of what was going on, and that they need to be sequestered and all of that. So it's just very sad. As we were driving back to North Carolina, we were listening to the trial in the car, and at that time we were listening to when George Floyd's brother was speaking. And I know as I was sitting in the car listening to him describe his brother and when they grew up, it just brought tears to my eyes. And it was just as I was sitting in the car crying, because I just really believe in my whole heart that this is not going to go anywhere. It is going to be it's just going to be another show, and I really believe that something will happen to where Minneapolis is going to go up, because people are just frustrated and tired, and it's like a tinderbox.
Yeah, I think the evidence is overwhelming. I mean, but it's been overwhelming in the past, right? I think he's going to be convicted. I think he will be sentenced to 10 years plus. I think everybody's trying to distance themselves from him. The other three officers involved, they've all done well, and saying, look, you know, this guy died not because of our actions. You know, we tried our best to, no, not even that they tried their best. They tried to intervene, but Chauvin did what he did, and I think he's going to go, and he's going to be the example. If he's not, I mean, bro, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, this country's going to be on fire tonight.
Yes, absolutely.
What happened in Chicago? It's going to be on fire tonight.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So
Absolutely.
if by next week this time, you know, if they go to deliberation and they spend a day or two deliberating, they're only partially sequestered. So they're home now, right? They're home now. So they're out there, they're seeing everything. They'll be in hotels while they deliberate. But I think he's going to be convicted. I do.
I hope you're right. I pray to God you're right. What do you think, Jay?
I'll be honest with you. I think y'all crazy as hell. Because I mean, seriously. And so let me answer a couple things for you. Based on our history, you say, you know, well, this guy should obviously be convicted because he killed this black guy. But we've seen over and over again that you can walk into people's apartments and kill them. You can do all kinds. You know, I go all the way back to Emmett Till. Emmett Till's mama was a gangster, right? Because she had that open casket because you want everybody to see what happened to her baby, and everybody saw that, and they don't kill more and more and more since then because the evaluation of black lives is zero in this country for real. And I'll segue to something else real quick with that too, but. We say, well, what's going to happen if they don't convict them? The same thing that always happens when they don't convict them. You know, me and CJ were talking about qualified immunity last time we had a show, and they hide behind that. And the idea is that, you know, they have a dangerous job and stuff, and they have to make split-second decisions and stuff. But that doesn't make any sense because the doctors and nurses don't have qualified immunity. If they kill somebody, in fact, nobody else has the right to just kill people except for the people who are supposed to be saving them. And the system just isn't built, in my mind, for the justice that we want to see. If they convict them, I mean, I just find it hard to believe they'll actually convict them. And that's why the defense doesn't matter. Everybody's like, oh, his defense attorney didn't do a great job. I'm like, he didn't have to. He's a white police officer. All he had to say was, well, he was scared of the people over there, and so he feared for his life, and that covers it. That's it. That's what the law says. The law says he feared for his life. He made a decision. 9 minutes and 20-something seconds of it, but he made a decision. And in this country, it just doesn't matter. As we saw earlier, release tapes earlier this week and stuff, it's the color of your skin.
Right.
You can't even be in a uniform.
Right.
And be protected.
Right.
From harassment and that idea, because black lives don't matter. It don't matter what kind of wig you got on, what kind of car you drive. If you're wearing your pants off your ass, or you got a 3-piece suit on from Armani and stuff. I don't know if that's still a thing with Armani, but the point is that it doesn't matter as long as you're black. You're in danger. Your life is in danger.
Your color supersedes anything. Because you're right. Whether you're in a military uniform or not, it doesn't mean anything. And that's the sad part, Jay, is that basically being black is the threat. You know, it doesn't matter if you have a gun or not. The fact that you're black is the threat. So all the defense lawyer had to basically do is lean in on racist white theories about black people being able to become meta-damn humans and have super strength. So we have to anticipate that even if he's unconscious, he may revive himself, almost doing it. You know, the Incredible Hulk was a white guy that turned green. But if you let white folks tell it, they think that we can Hulk out like that.
Well, hey, look, a point to that is that he was a white guy that turned green, and he roamed around, they couldn't catch his ass. And he turned black, he'd have been dead that damn night.
Amen. Amen.
That's true, but that's what I'm saying. So as long as the defense attorney can get one other white person on that jury to understand being in a situation where I was walking down the street and I saw 2 black people coming towards me and I crossed the damn street. That's the kind of person that he's appealing to. Somebody to go, okay, as long as he was black, there was enough credibility for this officer to believe that I had to use an extra amount of force to make sure that we had him under control.
See, that's the whole point of subliminal messaging in all the movies and sitcoms and stuff like that. We grew up because we're all about the same age. So, you know, we all grew up watching pretty much the same kind of things, guys. All of that is just, we were trained and bred that way subliminally So whenever they see this happening in real life, when they're having to come across a Brian Parker, Jermaine, or Brad, or CJ, I guess I'm the safe black guy because I'm the one that smiles. But if y'all didn't smile, then yeah, they would go full on with y'all, you know, and we'll be reading about you. But yeah, so people do what they see in the movies and what they're trained and conditioned to do, and this is what happens. And so far, 35%, that's 1 in every 5 persons you see that are white are leaning towards believing that he does not even need to be convicted.
Well, I mean, and to Brian's point, CJ, is that he's talking about he's trying to the defense is trying to appeal to somebody. He's not trying to appeal to anybody. He's just, that's why I say he's not very good. He's not working very hard because he had to, because the groundwork for this has been laid since slavery, right?
Right.
The lie they told them was we were subhuman. Then after that, we were ignorant. Then after that, after Jim Crow and civil rights and stuff, we were super violent and criminals and stuff. And so the bars are pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And so he didn't have to spend a lot of time working on it. Like I say, it's in subconsciously through our media and it's in our laws. When we talk about things that are systemic and stuff, it is baked into everything. Pete Buttigieg recently said that transportation and roadways inherently racist and stuff. And when you look into the history of that, there were roads. They don't break up the privileged side of town. They run the roads to the successful blacks. It's historic and stuff. It's stuff that's been written down. A lot of people say, "Oh, you just being crazy" and stuff like that. And I mean, you can call me crazy. You have to call me Batman. But
That's right.
But no, seriously, it's I personally don't have high hopes because I've lived in this country long enough and I know what it's about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just like we were saying before, like even before when all this stuff started breaking down, we was kind of already giving our ideas about it, and you stayed steady, and I'm still stay somewhat optimistic, but I'm always bracing for the ultimate letdown. Now, here because of this second incident, and I only know North Carolina law like the back of my hand, but I did not know their repercussions or their limits of what they call their second degree murder. I didn't know it had a max cap of 10 years. That's nothing, y'all. That's nothing.
But the problem, and I know we're crossing over to the shooting of Daunte Wright that happened just the other day from the police officer that obviously can't tell out of 26 years of being on the force, obviously can't tell the weight difference between a damn taser and a service weapon.
Weight, look, size, trigger pull.
One's a dominant color, one has flashier colors.
But I'm an FTO.
One you put on your dominant side, which would be your service weapon, and the other you put on your other side. Yeah, after 26 years, I can see how you fuck that up. But with all that said, what you have when you charge somebody with first degree murder, you're really putting yourself in a bad position a lot of times because you have to prove intent. Always remember, first degree and intent have to be there. Like if there was a manifesto that said, I'm gonna go out and kill a bunch of black people, first degree murder is gonna be on the table. Once as a prosecutor pulls up that first degree, you better be able to prove intent.
I don't believe that.
Why not?
I don't believe that because if Floyd had killed him, they'd have no problem proving
that's different.
that he was guilty.
It's different because he's
Antifa. And that he had intent.
But see, that's what makes the difference.
Antifa.
It's intent versus, oh, oops, I didn't mean to kill him accidentally on purpose.
Right.
So, and this is how much of an FTO she is, y'all. Now, me, I've been an FTO just as long as this lady has.
Sorry, what is that? Field training officer? What is FTO?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's field training officer.
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no. You cool. You cool. Field training officer is just FTO is field training officer. Basically, guys, all it is that we, and I have to say we because that is what I was. We are held to a higher standard than your regular police officers. We are the ones that supposed to be that shining badge that you see, that the ultimate cop. You know, and on top of it, what makes her resume so beautiful and at the same time so ugly. Did y'all know that she was on the negotiating team?
Of course, she was the president of the union. And then
Go ahead, Laura.
no, she was the president of the union, and with her resigning from her position, she was able to keep her pension.
Yeah, because they don't touch.
Of course, they won't touch it because of the strength of the union, and with the negotiation based on the package that she helped negotiate for her members, she's able to keep her pension.
And that's why the woman ain't hurting at all, and she won't ever hurt. She has a check for the rest of her life for taking out a life unnecessarily, for snuffing out a life.
So you're under the thought process that even though she's been charged, booked, and set free on $100,000 bail, that's going to be the only time that she sees a jail cell?
Oh yeah, definitely, especially her, because then she's gonna go up on that stand and cry, "I didn't mean to. I said taser, taser, taser," because that's what we teach. If you was in my class right now, and by the way, I am gonna start my business up, y'all. But when you go to my training, that is what I'm going to tell you. That is how I'm going to get you to practice that muscle memory. Every time you go to your weak side, okay, or your non-dominant side, and you punch out, before you even do that, you're gonna say taser, taser, taser. And as you're coming out of your holster, you're already on your second to third taser chant. Now you have eye to your target. Target is on the red dot, which is lighting the body up. She knew then. Let's just say she just was going by feel. Okay, y'all, we talking about an FTO. So all this is just bullshit.
I guess that's my point.
So,
If it was a rookie,
right? If it was a rookie, yeah, we'll let him go. But we're talking about a veteran of 26 years. She trains the trainers, including she keeps up with her own sustainment.
now how can she hide behind it after 26 years? You don't know the difference between the weight of a service weapon and a taser?
Oh yeah, weight, size, color. Say it with me, y'all. Weight, size, color. You got 3 very big indicators there. Oh, and by the way, let's not
Position.
I'm sorry. Make sure Jermaine understands that's not how you filter available strip clubs.
Right. Okay.
Oh,
Now, let's not forget.
He doesn't go to those places. What are you talking about? He doesn't go to those places.
He does based on weight, size, and color.
Let's not forget.
No, we're not arguing that. We're arguing whether Bryant should have said that.
Right.
Yes.
But
we're not arguing that fact.
Let's not forget. Strong side or dominant side.
Right. Position.
Okay. Strong side. I'm right-handed, so it'll be here.
Right.
Non-dominant side is 2 places. It's either dead center of your body, in which that's how I'll carry mine, or on your left side. And before anybody talk about training and all this other stuff, let me tell you something about the utility belt of every officer. And this is military and civilian alike. Even in the police academy, from the very day you step foot in that door, and they give you what we call it your Batman belt. You know that belt inside and out. You know it blind like this and or without looking at it. Why? Because you are training yourself to have divided attention. It's just like Drumline. When he was sitting up there, he was telling him, you don't have to look at your drum to get your rhythm. You will know it. Same thing with law enforcement guys and their utility belt. They don't even have, you don't, after a while, you won't even have to look at it. You know exactly how your particular duty belt is set up. Duty belt, utility belt, same thing.
Right.
You know where it's at. You don't have to look for it.
So CJ, let me ask you this, because this is what I really think this comes down to, because, you know, to me, the bullshit is the whole thing about training. You know, you can't train somebody to not look at somebody as a threat merely because of the way that they look. That's not a training issue. Training is me showing you how to shoot straight. Training is showing you how to go through certain protocols and procedures about escalation and de-escalation. That's training. But me being able to say, I view you as a person who should be able to live has nothing to do with training. So tell me this, what kind of psychological profiling evaluations go into somebody going from a cadet to an actual officer?
Okay, cool. I got your answer. I answered this to my wife just on last night, guys. From day one of you coming out of anybody police academy, it does not matter. We all have the same core training. It's just like college. Okay. Right. So everybody comes out with the exact or about the exact same amount of information as to how to enforce law. You have a certain way you stand. It's called an interview stance. You have a certain way that you have peripheral visions and different things like that. You paying attention to the radio as well as talking to to your contacts and different things like that. If you are the only officer, you know how to try to maintain as much control as you can until your backup comes, different things like that. All of that is training. All what I just said is training. But here's what you don't get to see. Here's what you don't get to hear. And this is where the system comes in at, guys. From the day that you leave police academy to when you start hitting the road with your FTO, with your field training officer, they're going to say this magical phrase. And it's almost the same phrase I heard when I was leaving boot camp and I was going into the fleet. You know all that stuff they taught you in school? Forget all that. This is how we really do it. And that's where the systematic training begins. The shifting of the mental. Now, he's not going to ever say, you will never, ever, 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 never, you will never, ever hear an officer say, unless he gets really, really comfortable, and he did that statement that Georgia officer made. He's not going to say, this is how you pull over black people. This is how you pull over Latino people. This is even how you pull over what we consider white trash. But you never, ever, ever, never will pull over a lawyer, a governor, a senator, anybody that's of power of position. And we never, ever, ever pull over our own. If you happen to pull one over, let them go. It doesn't matter. Because, guys, you have to understand the type of people that police officers try to recruit. They try to recruit people with the highest degree of integrity. All right, straight out your mama's house, squeaky clean record, different things like that.
But
they go in.
I get that, but a part of that is, or should be, a psych evaluation, right?
Yeah.
Does
And
that does that happen?
and you go in, yes, I will pull over my mama and I will give her a ticket if I saw her violate. It's certain words, it's certain questions in that psyche eval. And as long as they know that you're not on some type of medication, that you're under some type of program or something like that that's talking about your mental, like you just can't hold it together, different things like that, you're gonna pass it.
Well, then
So
that's just set up.
right.
That's
So
just set up wrong because it should ask you inherent questions about how do you feel about Black
Mhm.
folks.
Yeah. No.
But
Well, you know what?
maybe not that direct. I get it.
It'll
Jermaine.
be it will be indirect, and that's what I was sharing with my wife. Basically, it's just like that driver's ed test. Like you answer the same question over and over again.
Right.
They're just switching it up in different ways. And you can say, okay, well, you know, how do you, okay, I'll give you an example of one that I remember. It asked me, what did I feel about deadly force, the use of using a firearm? What was do I feel strongly about it? Do I agree with it? Do I disagree with it? It asked, it was a question about my integrity. Like, if you come to find out that your family member had committed a crime, would you turn them in? Different things like that. It can be the same thing about races and cultures and different
Right.
things like that.
More
You know,
behavioral questions.
right? Behavior, exactly. Questions that you would literally get from a behavior analysis unit.
Correct.
You know, and that would be a lot more accurate in knowing the psyche of a person, and not only that, actually put them through the test of it. You know, just like how you would go through like a hell week in college, and you know, in a fraternity or something like that. It
Right.
needs to be the exact same way when it comes to us. Whenever we go out and before you go to graduation, you need to be tested on everything that you sat down in classroom to learn. You know, they'll tell you, oh, well, we don't have enough hours to cover this, and you'll learn this out in the field. That's the cover up. I shouldn't say cover up, but that's the excuse.
Right.
We're not going to spend much time on this block. But what that block is, y'all, guess what? It's called ethics.
Right. Come back to me, Jermaine, about the behavioral things. What were you thinking about that?
Well, I was going to tell you, you know, you're talking about like, you know, they should ask questions and psych evals, stuff like that. And the problem is that we all understand, most grown, competent people understand how to answer questions. You know, in the military, when they ask you questions about, well, how many times, how often do you drink? The first time you say, "Oh, I drink every day and I drink 7 beers and stuff," and you get counseled for that. The next time they ask you, say, "Oh, I don't drink at all." You know, if you were not smart enough to figure it out the first time, you'll figure it out the second time and stuff. And so people's responses, again, you know, the problem I have is that no matter what, you know, and I know you have several topics you want to get on, but my basis is always going to be back to the history of this country, the way things are taught in this country, the way things are recognized and stuff. You can have a psychopath says, you know, directly, how do you feel about Black people? And there's a guy that hates Black people who goes, well, I want this job, and I know that I can't say that because I know better, right?
Right.
I know better than to say it, but this is what I believe anyway. And people do that all the time. People, and it doesn't matter whether it's cops or it's in Columbia, South Carolina, where you got a staff sergeant out here harassing a young Black man for walking around his own neighborhood and stuff.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And you also
I
have
do
that
love that.
the police chief in Windsor, Virginia, who after they fired that Officer Gutierrez from the force, but the police chief had stated that there was no apology due to Lieutenant.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I didn't hear that.
That was there was a USA Today article about that where he was talking about that.
I'm sorry, you said that there was no apology from the military guy or the or the
There was no apology from the chief of police of Windsor, Virginia, regarding that particular incident that happened with Lieutenant Carrion Nazario.
Because they figured by firing him, that was enough.
Right.
Well, and you have to understand now that stuff right there. I'm not worried about because that's liable stuff, right? You know, if you offer up an apology, then then there's an admission there of guilt and that you did something wrong.
It is.
And so, you know, when he said that, I personally wasn't that bothered by it because, again, I've lived in this country and I just kind of understand what you're going to get for that kind of stuff. Is an organization going to be like, oh, yeah, you know, in fact, if you get into a car accident, what would your insurance tell you? Don't say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
yeah.
You get into an accident, you cause an accident, don't say I'm sorry because you're
Even if you believe you're at fault, don't admit to being at fault, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not. So even if the police chief believes that they're at fault, his lawyer, the lawyer for the department, will say you cannot offer apologies for this kind of stuff.
And probably the lawyer for the police union probably said the same thing.
Yeah. So I mean, it's troubling. This is a hard time. It's been a hard couple of years for Black people because repeatedly. And it just seems like nonstop, it's just been reminders about how little people think of you. And every Black person can see themselves in situations because we're not talking about, there was a video released of a 61-year-old guy that was dragging a police officer in his truck.
Yes, and that he wasn't, and it was in Minnesota, but basically
in Minnesota.
He was dragging the police officer, but he was just taken into custody, but he wasn't killed or, you know, but he drove away, but they got him and they brought him in peacefully.
Hit him with a hammer, so he gonna shoot him, damage police cars, drug a police officer stuff. They didn't try to tase him, and they didn't try to shoot him.
He was hanging, the police officer was hanging from the window trying to get the guy to stop, and he just barreled around in this way. They didn't tase him, they didn't shoot him, nothing. He just took off.
And see, that is what the prosecution is going to try to lean on, guys, when it comes to this this FTO. What they're going to say was, or what they're really going to try to express, just like how they are doing it with the David Chauvin case, is that they're trying to say there wasn't even a cause for anything outside of verbal commands for her to even go to her utility belt at all for any escalation of any other force other than verbal commands, or just write the boy his ticket and let him fight it in court.
Because isn't the whole purpose of force to be used when you fear that there is a threat?
No, yes and no. Force within itself is just a means of doing something either by coercion, threat, or intimidation. Okay, and we, as a law enforcement officer, you are supposed to recognize it, analyze it, and realize that either I have to match this particular resistance or go maybe a step above it, but without overdoing it. Using
CJ, let me break it down this way, kind of like the way that the prosecution broke it down in the Chauvin case.
Mm-hmm.
Me, in and of myself, walking towards you is not a threatening thing to do.
No.
Okay. So you would not think force is a responsible response then, right?
Now,
if I'm just walking towards you.
If you're walking towards me. Now, however, since you are larger than me, how tall are you?
I'm 6'1".
6'1". Okay, I'm 5'5". So now I'm gonna make you a police officer, or make my, I'm back. I'm sworn in. So now I only want you to come but so far to me, because not only do you have reach on me, I don't know if you got a certain kind of skill set or not. So I'm gonna say, okay, that's close enough. and then I'm a what we call
But that's a verbal command.
right,
You
exactly,
automatically go to
exactly,
a position of force.
right. So
Okay.
my force is meeting your show of
Your force is a response to an action of mine.
exactly.
Me being 6'1" up in and of itself, me walking towards you isn't
Doesn't
a
mean a thing.
presentation of a threat.
Right.
Okay.
And it's only whenever you are showing other signs
Right.
that I need to say, okay,
if I'm in
that's
a
enough.
stance, if my hands are in my pocket,
Body language. Body language.
then that's not even necessarily a threat. There is a potential risk.
Right. And
the response
the
to a risk still isn't really force necessarily.
right.
There's a potential risk, but there's a potential risk just walking outside every day. Don't mean you walk around with your gun out.
So what it looks like, guys, is that we are starting to see an exposure, because they've been there. Hell, I've worked around them. A lot of scary officers, and they're just being exposed now. And but thanks to the Trump administration, they are no longer afraid to show just how scary they really are.
But they're not scary when they're getting his ass drug around in the car.
Of course.
But he is scared when a black man is laying in the prone position with his arms behind his back, handcuffed, and a knee in his neck, and he's still afraid because you've got young people of color sitting there screaming that you're a bum.
Because in his head, they were all going to jump on him because he knew he was wrong from the giddy up.
Okay.
He was wrong from
if he thought that, why not brandish his firearm?
Well, what's that?
His hands were in his pockets. How scared could you be?
He's not. Look, when you see body language like that, let's talk body language a little bit. When you see body language like that, anybody can look at that and say, that man is relaxed. He's done this before.
Yeah.
He is very calm with this.
Like he had no problem.
Right. Like this is run of the mill.
Right.
Like he wasn't even worried as to how he had Mr. Floyd subdued. That wasn't his issue. His issue was like, here's
the thing.
About dinner time, ain't it?
If you're worried about how the crowd is responding, maybe if you stop the action that they're responding to, it would de-escalate the situation.
Oh, stop. Because you're making sense. Don't
see
do that.
If you would have got up, then the crowd would have stopped.
You're making sense. You can't do that.
It doesn't matter. We talk about this stuff, the nuance of stuff. What's my boy Kyle
Greenhouse?
See, I told you,
Greenhouse.
Young boy.
He walked up to the police with a gun in his hand after he had killed people, and they were not concerned.
They didn't feel threatened.
They didn't feel threatened. It's not about, and that's the thing I say, is this has been so traumatic for the last couple of years because you can't sleep in your own house.
Right.
You can't walk down the street. You can't jog down the street. You can't sell cigarettes. You can't drive a car. You all these things and that's the reason that we can see ourselves, because it's just normal stuff, right? It wasn't like they were gang banging and stuff like that. They were just living. They were living and being, and that was too much for other people. You just living and being and stuff. And so we can say, and they can be like, well, the threat and the definition and stuff. I don't even want to talk about that because that's ridiculous. We know what it is. And I'm not going to be gaslighted about anything other than you're afraid of black people because, and I know why, because granddaddy told you, who told you daddy, who told you, you've grown up with it. It's America. It's woven into America. There's been too many cases of where we expose the truth. People, oh, y'all crazy stuff. No, they were experimenting on black people. Oh, they're crazy. No, they were dividing up the families and stuff. No, y'all crazy. No, they were denying loans and advantages and jobs and everything else. And the schools were not good. And and people are so worried about signs that say, you got to wear a mask, but they were okay with signs that said whites only and stuff. It's hard for me to take any of these arguments seriously when I know what it is. And I would actually just feel better if they would just say it. Yes, we don't like niggas. What about it? Okay. Okay, just say it. Stop playing with me, though. The laws are written, like I said, the defense attorney doesn't have to do a good job because the laws are written to protect the officer.
Yeah,
He can say,
Apparently, that's true.
ooh,
white officers, women, and children, guys. That's who the laws are.
That's why the prosecution
Yeah,
had to be so methodical.
yeah.
Because basically, if this had been a black person, he'd showed the video and rested.
yeah.
He wouldn't have had to call no 18 million witnesses. Hell, what you saw is what you saw. You saw a murder.
Experts on top of experts.
Well, I mean, and to Jermaine's point, we're going to see it play out because we're going to have full context here, right? Because we remember a couple of years ago when the black officer shot the white woman.
Right.
Was
Yeah.
convicted. If I'm not mistaken, he was sentenced to 10 years. I believe.
He was.
Yep.
And that was there was no
Minnesota.
about it. It wasn't on TV. It was just up. That cop did
You almost didn't even know it happened. Yeah,
and rightfully
You almost
so.
didn't even know it
He
happened.
shot a white woman. He should go to jail. Off the table. So now we got Chauvin in our face, looking directly into the camera, like, I know what I'm doing. I know it's wrong, and I'm completely comfortable in my space doing it.
And
Let's
Brad,
see how this plays out.
black guy in that case claimed it was an accident. He
Right.
shot the wrong person. They ain't
Yeah,
care.
it was right.
They ain't care.
Right. No support at all. He got no support.
Let him go.
There was no Blue Lives Matter in his case. I mean, he was done. He was done.
You're right. The only difference in this case is that he's had quite a few officers, like y'all said earlier, distance themselves from them by saying, hey, that is not part of our training. The fact that they're actually saying that's not part of our training, and I know what they're doing, Jermaine. I know they're basically trying to, I get it. But
they're distancing themselves from a lawsuit. They're not distancing themselves from that dude.
No.
They don't want to get sued.
But what they're saying, though, Jermaine, though, is this isn't an issue of how he was trained. This was a conscious decision that, yes, I know I may have been trained to do X, Y, Z, but when, like what CJ said earlier, everything that you were trained, forget all that. This is how we really do it. This is Wild Wild West. Right. So I'm not saying other officers in Minneapolis would not have necessarily done that, but what they can't go back and say in front of cameras is, oh yeah, we train people to do this. Well, there's formal training,
and then there's informal training. And it's the informal training that the FTOs, senior officers, have that influence with the junior officers. And or officers with pool.
We all of our jobs have certain things where you have to learn stuff by the book, but there are certain things you can deviate from. But the things that we normally deviate from don't end up costing people their lives.
Exactly.
So he was Denzel Washington in Training Day.
Right?
So we know Denzel, when he came out of the academy, was totally different. But by the time we met Denzel in the movie, he was tainted.
King Kong ain't got nothing on me.
He had that young boy, right? And he was going to train him to really how the streets are, right? That's what Chauvin was doing. He was showing, I run these streets. I do whatever I want to do. In fact, let me raise my foot up off the ground, put a little more pressure on him. Just more. And when EMS shows up, nothing. He knows EMS is there. He sees them, makes visual, nothing. The officer next to him says, should we, sir, should we roll him on his side? They were trying to say, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you gonna kill this man. You gonna kill this man. But because he was the grizzled veteran, they didn't know how to say it to him. They couldn't say, get off him. You know, they couldn't say that.
Because
I think he's getting convicted, and I think he's going to get 10 plus years.
I hope so, brother.
That's what I believe. I could be wrong. I understand. Everything Jermaine says is true.
Brad, I'm
Everything he says is true.
gonna give it to you. So let's say that he does get convicted, he gets his 10+ years. You know what I equate this to? I equate this to when they pardon a turkey on Thanksgiving. So the person come out
Absolutely.
there, they go, "Hey, look, we gonna do what's right now."
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
then on Thanksgiving, all these dead birds show up in everybody's houses.
Yep.
Sure.
Absolutely.
But we find one of them.
Sure.
Guys,
Sure.
we all,
We'll do this one good thing, but we're gonna kill the rest of y'all. But and the thing is, and you're dead.
Yep.
It don't matter.
right, and see, that's my thing. It's not going to bring back
Amen, brother.
these. It's not going to bring back these
Absolutely
lives.
not.
It's not going to
Absolutely
bring back
not.
these lives.
Oh,
And
what?
And it's not going to discourage this from not happening again. That's the main thing, because you can't bring George Floyd back. You can't bring Daunte Wright back. You can't bring Adam Toledo back.
right,
But you would sit there and think that most of these things would be a deterrent, but it won't be. Hell, we can't even make it all the way through George Floyd's trial before 10 miles away, they're doing the same shit again.
no, because of the simple fact, it's just like kids, okay? Parents getting on their kids and knowing that that parent ain't really gonna do nothing. You gonna send me to the corner. You're gonna tell me I'm in timeout for about 15 minutes. Then I'm gonna whine and cry and do whatever I need to do to either get on your nerves or be so cute. And then I'm right back to doing what I'm doing within minutes.
But if I whoop your ass right, you'll think twice about it.
There you
But
go.
if I let you off with a warning or a stern look and all that other
Exactly.
bullshit, you're right. But if I whoop your ass just right, like Mom used to do,
Oh yeah.
me and Jermaine thought twice about that.
Listen, bruh.
Or
I had that mama that will embarrass herself
but see,
embarrassing you.
even if Derek Chauvin gets that proverbial ass whooping, it does not set into the mind of the next officer that thinks that I have the complete ability to sit there and end somebody's life with autonomy.
Because
so if it doesn't do that, then what's the point?
Hence the reason why
we're still not any safer than we were before Derek Chauvin is or isn't convicted.
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah. Hence the reason why.
And by stating,
there has to be,
this doesn't make them pause. What will?
Right.
What's going to make them pause?
I said on here a couple weeks ago that the gun control debate was dead when we killed kids, right?
Yep.
And so when we killed kids, elementary school, when I say we, and our policies as a country, when those kids died, and we couldn't come up with common sense gun control agreements after that, that's when the conversation ended. And so our conversation, but they've been killing us and our children for so long. That's what I'm telling you. Until when they killed Tamir Rice, and it was okay. Yeah. When they constantly harass and kill our kids, you might get this one, and maybe times are changing a little bit, but not so much that people think, or like say the deterrence there. They're not deterring stuff, and the police are kind of the worst. And I'll give you an example of why the police are the worst, because they're individual departments all over the place that have their own policies and procedures and training and stuff like that. There's some core stuff, like CJ said, there's core stuff that they're taught and stuff, but how they use the application of law and stuff is totally up to some places just sheriffs, and it's hard. In the military, after the January 6th stuff, there's some training that's coming down about extremism in the force. Now, because it's a federal force, everybody gets the training and everybody's held to the same standards. And think about this. When you talk about fear for your life and stuff, there's a 19-year-old, 18-year-old kid that's been serving overseas, and Biden's talking about getting everybody out of Afghanistan, but went to Afghanistan years ago and stuff and faced a tremendous fear for his life, but had rules of engagement that said he couldn't pull his trigger unless they were shooting at him. And an 18-year-old got that because if he did it wrong, the military was going to convict him and lock him up.
Yes, sir.
Because there's self-policing there in that organization. You know, one of the guys explained a long time ago, especially with my branch Air Force stuff, said, you know why we harp on your professionalism and we root out, we're more the good cops speak up in this profession and we root out the bad apples and stuff? Because we have nuclear weapons and we need public trust in order to have that kind of destruction at our fingertips. And it's the same thing with police officers. They need public trust in order to operate. And right now they don't have it, but they don't care.
Because of what they already have established from the word marshal, sheriff, whatever it was, since Wackenhut days, before he was even security. You're talking back, what, 1600s maybe? That's where it started. So that's a lot of history to undo, to uncover, to redo. And it's not that they can't, they just don't want to.
Well,
No, they don't want to.
Honestly,
it can be done. It's just like drug trafficking and everything else. They'll do just enough for the general public not to complain so much. You remember the so-called war on drugs in the 80s?
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's how criminal justice has been for the longest. You know, we'll let a couple of them out, like kind of like Jermaine's turkey analogy. You know, we'll do a couple pardons, let a couple of them out. So, you know, don't come to us about, you know, reforms and this and that and the other, because, you know, everything is, we're doing you a favor when we do this. When it really is no, if Derek Chauvin is convicted, you're not doing us a favor.
No, but that's the way they're looking at it, though.
He's getting justice. His family is getting justice.
According
but they would trade the justice to have George here breathing, which had he not ever encountered Derek Chauvin, May 25th, 2020, he'd probably still be alive today. Fentanyl, oxy, whatever. He'd still be alive, more likely than not. So, you know, that's just the crazy part of it is that we're not looking for this to be a game changer. It's not going to change the way police patrol. It's not going to change the way that police look at black people versus how they see white people with an AR-15 in their hand on the state grounds in Michigan or at the Capitol during the insurrection. That's totally different. The way that they see a Black Lives Matter protest, even when 95% of the people are being peaceful, even though 95% of the people are not brandishing weapons and guns, that's still more of a threat than a bunch of people with Confederate flags, Trump flags, and everything else strapped with AR-15s. They're not perceived as a threat. You even have a congressman that literally says, I still did not see the insurrectionists as a threat. Even though they were trying to make me do a certain thing, I was okay with that. But had they been BLM, I might have been a little worried. He said that. They are, and to Jermaine's point, I mean, to CJ's point, they are starting to say the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
You know,
actually
admitting that I'd be more intimidated by a couple thousand peaceful black protesters than couple thousand white folks with AR-15.
Again, they had more officers in Brooklyn Center the other night prepared than they had on January 6th. I mean, they and National Guard and everybody. And January 6th, we found out that it was a documented threat. They heard about it before and they weren't prepared for it.
Well, no tear gas and smoke bangs going.
But again, they got green lights. And they were encouraged by the commander-in-chief, right? So he was the one that's been encouraging this for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Encouraging their behavior, their actions, their responses, all of it.
It is true.
Hey, I want to say to you, Brian, there are no quiet parts, man. We're talking about a country that openly owned slaves. That when they got rid of the slaves, the Klan rose up and stuff, and they hung and lynched and burned crosses well into the 80s. And so we're talking about where it got a little quiet in the 90s and early 2000s and stuff.
Right.
You know, that's this country you know, like I said, colored folks openly calling you niggas and stuff. Everything they have done to our people throughout, there are no quiet parts. That's why it's hard for me to take any seriousness when people are like, oh, this country is not about that. This country has been built on that.
Yes.
Right.
Don't get mad at me because I see the things that you are doing in front of me and then I call them out. You know, I had somebody tell me, you know, say, well, you know, I got this one friend, this white dude, and he's on this side, he's a Trump on this side, and I got Jermaine, and he's the extreme on the other side. I said, what makes me extreme? Because I can read and because I know what the country is?
No, what makes you extreme is that you have the nerve, the audacity to look at something and call it out for what it is and confront them about it. And that's just way too much. See, you're out of the box, Mr. Jermaine.
Yeah, you can't speak truth to power. Shame on you.
You're not. You see, evidently you have not learned your place.
That's right. Stay in your lane, Jermaine.
I am what they call uppity. I think that,
No, Jermaine, you're a bougie.
Yeah, you want to. You want to.
In the South, the term uppity, that was like, it was uppity niggas, right?
Yeah,
Because it was
uppity,
somebody
right.
who was up above where they were, they should have been in their status. They thought more of themselves than they should. That's the
You one of them, you one of them fancy niggers.
Yeah.
He
One of
house.
them fancy niggers.
He house versus field. That's a mentality that's still down here, unfortunately, even among Black folk.
Yep.
House versus field. That's how we fight each other down here.
Yeah. And
House versus field. I've been accused of being
That's
that
a whole nother show.
that's a whole nother show. That's a whole nother show.
But that's what I'm saying. We doing a whole lot of this to ourselves. We keep talking about the white folk demise of us. We doing a lot of it to ourselves.
You know what? So here's what I'm gonna say. Here's what I'm gonna say about that. That whole argument that, oh, well, what about y'all stuff? That's bullshit. That's carrying white people's water. For them to say that it's justified that they continue to do things to us because we don't have our shit together. I don't care if me and my wife are fighting this shit. That ain't got no reason for you to come over here and start hitting either one of us stuff. We'll work our shit out. All right.
Exactly.
Right.
Especially if we're fighting over the way that you treating us. Or the way you have treated us in the situations you put us in.
Right.
Because just because we fight each other don't mean we ain't unified.
Yeah, I don't carry that water about that, you know, because basically that's the same thing as black on black crime, which there's no such thing, because no one ever says anything about white on white crime. Crime is a proximity thing and a poverty thing.
Exactly.
And it's entirely other show for that and stuff. But no, we're good. I don't care what is going on in Black neighborhoods. That's our fucking business.
Yep.
You don't come in our house talking about our business stuff. We talking about you, and we gonna keep the conversation on you and the thing that you doing. You don't worry about what we doing. When you stop doing what you doing, then you can question what we doing.
That's right. Clean your shit first. I think that's what he just said.
Don't worry about what's going on in Chicago. The people don't give a damn what's going on in Chicago. They're just like using that. Like, did you see how many people were shot in Chicago last weekend? I said, do you know how many people in Chicago last weekend?
Pretty much.
You know, black people let me get this straight. Black people are the only ones when they talk about the violence and stuff, and I'll use the Chicago thing. How many people here have had a black church or neighborhood where they have candlelight, they have violence, the Mothers Against Violence, they have all these organizations stuff. We police and do things in our neighborhood and stuff. The reason white people don't hear about that stuff because it's none of their goddamn business. They don't live in our neighborhoods. That's our shit, policing our stuff and stuff. We do care about our neighborhoods and stuff. So if there is a conflict down here where we had two young black men and when somebody took somebody's life and stuff, we have our own marches in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We don't need to advertise that to white people because it's not their fucking business what we're doing in our neighborhood.
Exactly.
So we're not gonna talk about the other shit, but like I say, just throw it up.
You know, I was really gonna come up with a really clever close and everything, but I'm just gonna recap what my brother said. Mind your fucking business.
Pretty much.
And yeah, that part. So So we got to wrap up, and I think Jermaine put a nice bow on it. But all in all, people, you know, we are monitoring these things. It's just a sad state of affairs when real life is just always so prevalent that you're talking about some of the same things over and over and over. And before you can truly even get through one act of atrociousness, we're constantly seeing more stuff. And if you ask your friendly Black person, white people, they will tell you that this happens on any day of the week that ends in Y. For us, simply just doing regular routine stuff can still get you killed, whether it's eating ice cream in your own house, whether it's going to the local store for some Skittles, whether it's playing in the park, you know, whether it's hanging a damn air freshener on your rearview mirror, whether it's just sleeping at night. You know, those things in and of itself should not get you killed. You know, handing over a fake $20 bill should not end with your life ending. None of that should. A traffic stop should not mean that you're going to die. But for a person of color, it is a strong possibility. I know you all see the statistics where African Americans and people of color are 3 times as likely to die at the hands of police officers, and we're only 13% of the freaking population. So I agree with Jermaine when he says it's hilariously ridiculous to even give any credence to people that will sit there with a straight face and say to us, there is no systemic racism. We gave you a Black president. That's that example of a pardon. Out of 46 presidents, you got one. Now we done gave you a vice president. But now,
Well,
but they'll be quick.
Don't knock that. Don't knock that.
No, I'm not knocking it.
Knock that,
But
because in
how
my
many
mother's,
tries did it take to get it?
when my mother was my age or in the previous generations, when I was a kid, we always felt never. It would
Right.
never happen. But it did happen, and that takes something.
Yes, but what I don't want to
I'm
happen
not saying it's parody, but it's
No.
movement.
But I don't want people to mistake that for getting to the top of the mountain.
Absolutely not.
There's still a lot more to
You're
go
right.
that we need to do.
Absolutely.
And we
Absolutely.
got to be able to, you got to be able to see the change to continue to encourage more change.
Right.
That is what we've seen. But I don't want us to fall into that lull, into that complacency to believe that just because they think they gave us something, that's all that we are and all that we want. No. We need more of that. We need more Black senators and people of color. We need more people in higher positions, whether it's the Supreme Court, whether it's the federal appeals courts. We need more people as governors, as mayors. We need more people of color in places of authority that have a say on our daily lives. Like our first Black female mayor of St. Louis.
That's right.
St.
Absolutely.
Louis
Of Boston.
or
Yes,
Boston?
and Boston.
That's
And
your first in 2021?
Right.
Damn.
That's fun.
You know,
That's
how does that these other people identify with the challenges that are going on, and they can't relate to that, especially when they don't believe that there's any such thing as systemic racism. So more change is due. Even if Derek Chauvin, my point is that even if Derek Chauvin is convicted, even if now I'm forgetting their name, they just killed Daunte. Even if she's convicted, even if the cop that killed Adam Toledo is convicted, that's more justice for the family. But if we can't deter how these officers police us, we will not be safe. Our children will not be safe until people just don't inherently perceive you to be a threat because of the way that you look or how big you are, your stature, or the fact that I think I have to implement a little bit more force on you because you might just come up from the dead and hulk out on me and whoop my ass. Sometimes you just need to let that happen. You can't invoke force based on what you think may happen. The force has to be relative to what is actually happening. When you're getting drug around in a car, hell, that's about as close to life-threatening as you can be. And a weapon doesn't come out. Nobody's shot. Everybody gets to go home.
That's one time you should have emptied every magazine you have.
That's the one time that you would be justified and you could hide behind your little bullshit immunity and would nobody question you at all. But we have to do better, people, and we have to hold people accountable. And I'm going to end it on this. That's why I'm going to say it till I'm dead. Elections, elections, elections. Vote, vote, vote. Not just every 4 years, every damn year, vote. If they make it hard, vote. If they try to restrict it, vote. Whatever you got to do, because a lot of this stuff has to happen from local and state levels. Federal government can't fix everything.
No.
They won't fix everything until we fix it at the state and local levels first. That's how we encourage change and things like that. We have to become more of a voice. We have to address these things as they happen. It breaks my heart every time I have to talk about another person of color being killed at the hands of police. It truly does. But if I stop talking about it, then I'm going to be complacent in it. And I refuse to do that. So I'll let the tears flow. I'll let my heart break, but know that it's darkest before the dawn. And we got to hang in there, y'all. This is Brian Parker. We're head to head. I'd like to thank my panel, Ms. Lori Parker, Brad Kaufman, CJ Jones, and of course, the man that needs no introduction, the franchise, Jermaine Parker. We'll see y'all next week. Thanks.